Welcome, everyone, to another illuminating episode of Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom, the show where we dig deep into the secrets your cells wish you knew. I'm Ethan Foster, your unofficial observer of the human condition, here to question everything and nod in understanding at all the wrong times.
And I'm Alara Sky, the woman with a mind so sharp, I've been told my grocery lists qualify as PhD theses. Today, we're taking a closer look at something nearly impossible to avoid in modern life: ultra-processed foods. Let's just say these food-like substances are everywhere, from the gas station snack aisle all the way to your local health store's misguided convenience section.
You know, Alara, when I hear ultra-processed foods, I imagine menacing snack cakes and superhero capes, swooping in to sabotage my diet while screaming, "We're unstoppable." But as it turns out, these cunning little devils are actually unstoppable, unless we, the everyday eaters, dare to raise a protective shield of knowledge.
Ultra-processed foods look benign enough, but they slip into our diets with the stealth of a cat burglar. They're so good at it that a recent study found nearly 56% of daily calories in some groups come from them. And that figure might be low for people who consider microwaved meals a food group.
And now, we've got research showing that people eating these ultra-processed wonders have a 60% higher risk of something called low muscle mass, which sounds like a supervillain's origin story. But in real terms, it's a key indicator of sarcopenia.
Which, for everyone who isn't an anatomy geek like me, basically means losing muscle size and strength, like discovering your biceps canceled their gym membership without telling you. Sarcopenia doesn't only affect your ability to flex in front of the mirror, it can also shorten your life and mess with your overall health.
Exactly. Because, let's face it, if your muscles are out to lunch, unfortunately on processed foods, you're more prone to diseases like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and even heart issues. It's like a domino effect. One bad habit knocks into another, and before you know it, everything's lying flat on the floor.
The big question is, why do ultra-processed foods do this? Well, for starters, they're stripped of nutrients and stuffed full of questionable ingredients that lengthen shelf life but shorten your muscle life. And it doesn't help that they're loaded with this tricky little fat called linoleic acid, LA for short, which apparently enjoys wreaking havoc at a cellular level.
If LA had a theme song, it'd be something ominous, right? But we're not doing theme songs here. My apologies to any budding composers listening. Let's talk about how these foods manage to be so destructive. They're so processed that all the essential amino acids that help build and repair muscle seem to vanish into thin air. Instead, you're left with synthetic flavors, preservatives, and what I can only imagine are the spare parts from a chemistry set.
Right. It's the difference between giving your muscles a carefully curated set of nutrient-dense building blocks or handing them a couple of bent nails, duct tape, and saying, "Good luck constructing a mansion." No wonder muscle strength goes downhill.
And diagnosing problems caused by ultra-processed foods isn't straightforward. People notice they're feeling a bit weaker or a bit run down and assume it's just normal aging or maybe the weather. They rarely connect the dots back to that daily fast food lunch, plus the candy bar, dessert.
Also, let's be honest, many healthcare providers focus on weight and blood pressure. If you're not lugging around an extra 50 pounds or your arteries haven't formed a union and gone on strike, they might not suspect that your muscle health is quietly at risk. It's like ignoring a leaky pipe until you're ankle deep in water.
Let's dive into that second study that zeroed in on intramuscular fat, basically fat that sets up shop right where your muscle should be. Researchers found that people who eat a lot of ultra-processed foods have more of this fat infiltration. And it's not just about how many calories they eat.
Yes, that's one of the fascinating takeaways. Even if you're not over-consuming calories, the quality of those calories can nudge fat right into your muscles, especially in specific muscle groups, like flexors and adductors. It's a targeted strike. Or, as I like to call it, the sneak attack on the leg day gains.
Isn't that cheerful? You could be physically active, not overeat, and still risk extra muscle fat just because you can't resist a diet loaded with ultra-processed goodies.
Exactly. So that begs the question, do we need to track every single morsel, or is it about cutting back on the real culprits, these ultra-processed troublemakers?
I think you know the answer, but let's keep the audience in suspense. I want to hear about the third study first, the one on teenagers.
Ah yes, the teenage angle, where unstoppable appetites meet unstoppable marketing for the worst possible snack choices. Researchers in Brazil found that teens who ate more ultra-processed foods ended up with lower muscle mass. Now, that's a major red flag. Teenagers are in prime muscle-building years, so losing muscle before you've even left high school is like failing shop class with no chance at summer school.
It's like taking your brand new sports car and driving it on 4 flat tires. You might still get somewhere, but you'll ruin the engine and your dignity in the process.
Precisely. This is the time in life when they should be bulking up with healthy protein, vitamins, minerals, and natural fats. Instead, they're going for snacks loaded with refined carbs and unhealthy fats like LA. The result? It stunts their muscle development and sets them up for long-term issues.
The study made a point that for every 1% increase in calories from ultra-processed foods, there's a drop in muscle mass, not to mention a decrease in lean body mass. So you might even see teens with a lower BMI, but it's not because they're healthy. They're just losing muscle instead of shedding fat.
That's the key takeaway. Low BMI can be misleading if the lost weight is muscle. Muscle is metabolically active, meaning it works around the clock to keep you strong and burn calories. When you lose muscle, you lose your metabolic edge. Not a recipe for success in the long run.
So now that we've piled on all the gloom about how ultra-processed foods conspire to undermine both adult and teen muscles, we should probably share a glimmer of hope, right?
Absolutely. There is hope, and it starts with your grocery cart. The simplest, and arguably the most dramatic move, is to go cold turkey on ultra-processed foods. Just say no to convenience. It might mean giving up that beloved bag of neon orange chips, but your muscles will thank you. Think of it as preserving a vibrant coral reef in your body, instead of letting it turn into an oil slick.
And while you're at it, pay attention to linoleic acid. That's a major culprit. It interferes with everything from how your cells generate energy to how your insulin signals. Cutting out ultra-processed foods automatically cuts down on your LA intake, which is a win for every cell in your body.
Definitely. Then, once you've kicked those troublemakers to the curb, focus on real, quality protein. I'm not talking about protein bars that list 50 ingredients, half of which sound like they belong in your car's engine. I mean sources like eggs, grass-fed beef, pasture-raised poultry, and also collagen-rich foods like bone broth.
Wait, collagen is good for muscle? I usually think of it as something that helps keep people's faces from heading south.
It's not just for youthful glow. Collagen is a key structural protein in the body, essential for joints, connective tissue, and overall muscle health. So it supports how everything holds together. It's like the rebar in concrete. Without it, your foundation might start cracking.
I prefer to picture a robust steel frame in a new skyscraper, but rebar works too. I guess the message is, incorporate collagen-rich foods into your diet, or watch your muscular architecture fall into disrepair.
Exactly. And then there's the factor of daily movement. It doesn't have to be complicated. Go for walks, stand more often, do some bodyweight exercises or strength training. Anything that tells your muscles, hey, you're still needed around here.
That's right, because your muscles are like employees in a large corporation. If you give them no work to do, they'll just sit around scrolling on social media until they're eventually let go.
You have a point. A jobless muscle eventually decides to retire permanently. So keep your muscles engaged with regular tasks, and combine that with a protein-rich diet that isn't overshadowed by ultra-processed junk.
It's interesting how the simplest changes, like cutting out ultra-processed stuff, focusing on nutrient-rich meals, and getting a bit of daily exercise, address such complex problems. It reminds me of that old Sherlock Holmes line. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Except in this case, we're eliminating processed foods.
If Sherlock Holmes had been a nutritionist, that's probably exactly what he would have said. Another underrated aspect here is that when you remove ultra-processed foods, you're also reducing a lot of sneaky compounds that we haven't even talked about. Artificial colors, flavor enhancers, weird preservatives, things that your body might not handle too well. By cutting them out, you're doing a massive favor for all your organs, not just your muscles.
Right. It's like you clean your house with a single sweeping gesture. No more dusty corners, no more clutter, no more weird chemical residue under the rug. And as a reward, your body might actually function the way it's supposed to.
Precisely. One of the biggest arguments against eliminating ultra-processed foods is convenience. We live in a busy world, and these items are, well, so easy. But you have to ask yourself, is the minor time you save worth the long-term risk of sapping your physical strength?
That's the question of the decade. I suspect the answer is no. The cost of convenience can be pretty steep, especially when it's your muscle mass that's picking up the tab. You can always meal prep. Throw some veggies and high-quality protein in a slow cooker, or make a simple stir-fry. These aren't chores, they're investments in your future.
Indeed. And think about it. Muscle mass isn't just for aesthetics or for athletes. It's about staying functional, so you can carry groceries, hike with your family, climb stairs with ease. If we're not careful, our golden years might look more like rusted metal years.
Let's underline that. Muscle health is crucial for aging well. You keep your independence, reduce your risk of metabolic issues, and maintain a healthy body composition. It's not rocket science, but it is cell science.
And in a world of fleeting fads, returning to real food might be the most revolutionary move you can make. It sounds almost quaint. Eat real food. But it's arguably more cutting edge than any lab-grown Frankenmeal will ever be.
So, to sum up, we have a triple threat. First, studies show that ultra-processed foods up your risk of low muscle mass by 60%. Second, more UPFs equals more intramuscular fat, turning your muscles into a half-muscle, half-fat hybrid that does no one any favors. Third, heavy UPF consumption during crucial growth years leads to weaker teens, and weak teens become weaker adults.
Precisely. The solution? Ditch ultra-processed foods. Watch your linoleic acid intake plummet, focus on quality protein, including collagen, and stay active. It's like the simplest formula that no one wants to believe because it's not flashy. But we promise, it works.
Right? It doesn't come in a neon package or have a cartoon mascot, so how good could it be? Well, apparently it's good enough to protect your muscle strength and possibly extend your life. I'd say that's a decent trade-off.
Absolutely. Now, for those who are thinking, I'll just have a cheat day, just keep in mind, cheat days are best when they're occasional treats, not a daily routine. Because once you've seen what ultra-processed foods can do, it's hard to forget how devastating they can be for your health.
At some point, calling them a cheat day might be less about indulging and more about self-sabotage. But that's an individual choice. Everyone has different thresholds.
Exactly. Now, as we wind down, let's revisit the bigger picture. Health is about synergy. If you remove the bad stuff but don't add in the good stuff, or if you never move your body, you'll see partial improvements. Each part works together.
So it's not just about cutting out ultra-processed foods and crossing your fingers. It's also about fueling your muscles with quality nutrients, engaging in exercise, and maybe taking a brisk walk instead of a new Netflix binge. People often underestimate the synergy, thinking that if they do just one piece, they'll get all the rewards.
A single puzzle piece never shows you the whole picture. You need all the pieces to see the charming landscape, or in this case, the blueprint of vibrant muscle tissue. And yes, it's so worth it.
All right, Ilara, final thoughts before we sign off?
If you remember nothing else, remember this. Your body loves real food. It knows how to break down nutrients, store them, utilize them, and keep your muscles humming along. Ultra-processed foods throw a wrench in the works. So, do yourself a favor. Keep it real. Literally.
That's a good note to end on. Folks, this has been Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom, where we highlight the extraordinary things your cells can do, provided you don't bombard them with chemicals posing as cuisine.
Right. And we hope you enjoyed taking a deeper look at how ultra-processed foods can sabotage your muscle health. Because if you only want one set of ultra-processed anything in your life, let it be your phone's camera filters, not your dinner plate.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, keep those muscles strong and your food unprocessed. And remember, real muscle power starts with real food, no capes required.
Exactly. And if you do ever see a bag of snack chips wearing a superhero cape, just keep on walking. It's probably not there to save the day. Stay well, everyone. We'll catch you next time on Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom.